In a surprising turn of events, the announcement of Lai Ching-te's election as Taiwan's sixth president has sparked public celebrations in various parts of mainland China. First in Shanghai, followed by Tianjin, Qingdao, Kunming, and other cities, citizens took to the streets to set off fireworks, expressing their joy and excitement that Lai Ching-te's election as the president of the Republic of China, now commonly referred to as Taiwan. Netizens in Qingdao in particular openly expressed their excitement, saying, "Fireworks are everywhere in Qingdao tonight. Is it for celebrating Lai Ching-te's election as president? That is wonderful." Lai Ching-te, much like Zelensky, secured a resounding victory with the most votes on January 13th, firmly establishing his position as the political leader of Taiwan. Right after the election, a high-level bipartisan delegation sent by the Biden administration discreetly arrived in Taiwan to initiate contact with the newly elected president. Japan's delegation promptly followed suit, with representatives from South Korea and the European Union, among other democratic nations, making successive visits. Over 50 states and nations around the world have called to extend their congratulations to Lai Ching-te's election. This has in fact conferred political recognition on Taiwan's legitimate status, earning Lai Ching-te's widespread recognition from democratic countries and leading nations worldwide. The Chinese Communist Party's attempts to influence the Taiwanese election involving activities such as military exercises, satellite deployments, and balloon releases came at a considerable expense at a total of up to 300 billion Chinese yuan. However, these efforts have proven to be largely ineffective. Their biggest failure was the attempt to promote blue-white cooperation, which is the electoral alliance between Lai Ching-te's opposing political parties, the Kuomintang and Taiwan's People's Party, but ultimately most of the funds turned out to be wasted. Lai Ching-te was still elected as president, although his party saw a decrease of 10 seats in Taiwan's parliament compared to the previous term, leaving them with only 51 seats. To secure majority supports in Taiwan's parliament, Lai Ching-te must cooperate with Taiwan's People's Party. In his victory speech, he has already signaled a willingness to cooperate with People's Party and may consider freeing up one or two ministerial positions within his cabinet in exchange for their support. The special envoy delegation sent by President Biden is composed of military intelligence experts, including former Democratic Party's Deputy Secretary of State James Steinberg and former Republican Party's National Security Advisor Stephen Hadley. Their meeting with Lai Ching-te will undoubtedly center on the issue related to corruption in Taiwan's politics and reforming the military intelligence system. From now until the inauguration of the new president on May 20th, the situation in the Taiwan Strait will remain sensitive. The Chinese Communist Party may potentially manipulate various events behind the scenes, such as organizing protest by the Kuomintang, instigating disruptions through criminal organizations, or even resorting to extreme measures like assassination. These dark and hidden issues have undoubtedly been acknowledged as problems to be solved. It is rumored that up to 60% of Taiwan's military has been influenced by China. The U.S. Defense Authorization Act for 2024 appears to have anticipated this, as they have decided to conduct comprehensive training and reconstruction of Taiwan's military system in 2024. Lai Ching-te's election victory carries significant implications, impacting not only Taiwan but also the dynamics of the China-US relations and the broader global geopolitical landscape. His core belief is that peace stems from strength. He argues that Taiwan's economy should rely on the global market rather than solely on mainland China. National security should be based on self-reliance, rather than depending on external sympathy or supplication. He proposes that Taiwan should emulate Israel, becoming a crucial economic and military ally of the United States. The US has stockpiled billions of dollars in military supplies in Israel. If Taiwan could sign a $3 billion military material reserve agreement with the US, they would significantly bolster their confidence, establishing a strategic military mutual defense relationship with the US, will further strengthen Taiwan's position on the global stage. Lai Ching-te has also proposed delving into the political core of the United States, engaging in direct meetings with the US president, gaining access to the White House and the US Congress, and even seeking involvement in the United Nations and the Security Council. However, until the US presidential election in November 2024, Taiwan is expected to remain in a state of turmoil. If Lai Ching-te assumes office smoothly in May, he may initially adopt a cautious and low-profile approach. As for whether the Chinese government will escalate military threats against Taiwan, there may be some military demonstration in the short term, such as deploying more military aircraft and warships. As a warning to Lai Ching-te, however, the actual potential of launching a full-scale war would not be high. China's strategy towards Taiwan has consistently been a 16-character phrase, which translates into surround without attack, create conflicts, disrupt from the inside, and hand over national defense. Military action is only considered if these operations fail. Currently, the main focus is disrupt from the inside. As for the disrupt from the inside strategy, the Chinese Communist Party seems to be playing a two-faced game. On one hand, they engage in deceptive tactics with the United States, while on the other, they secretly collaborate with Russia, aiming to weaken American influence. This strategy is designed to use psychological warfare and diplomatic means to push back US policies, thereby gaining more leverage in the Taiwan situation. On January 8th, DWTV interviewed former Taiwanese President Ma Ying-jeou, who conveyed a supposedly conciliatory message to the United States. Ma phrased Xi Jinping as trustworthy, stating that China wouldn't initiate war or use force, and implied that the Taiwanese people were willing to accept peaceful reunification. He even cautioned the United States that a war would escalate into an unwinnable nuclear conflict. This position appears to send a message to the United States that is going to war for Taiwan is unnecessary. Meanwhile, on January 9th, China's United Front Work Department Minister Liu Jianchao arrived in the United States and delivered a speech at a large-scale conference attended by 100 American strategists, academics, and media professionals, attempting to convince the United States that China won't create a new international order. This could potentially trigger an American isolationist tendencies or make some reconsider whether it's truly necessary to confront China over Taiwan, and instead adopt a wait-and-see approach. Reportedly, this effort has been collaborated on by experts from relevant American think tanks, with vigorous considerations made from the language used to the content presented. Between January 8th and 9th, the Chinese military dispatched a major general to attend the China-US Defense Policy Conference held at the Ministry of National Defense. The conference, in fact, is also a strategic maneuver. Afterward, a report will be produced, which might suggest that China does not pose any threat to Taiwan and global security as widely perceived, and that they have no intention of aligning with Russia, hinting that the United States may potentially cooperate with China against Russia. Following that, on January 10th, Bloomberg issued a warning, stating that a Taiwan war could result in losses of up to $10 trillion, impacting far beyond the Ukraine conflict, the COVID-19 pandemic, and the global financial crisis. Taking all these events into account, it becomes evident that the Chinese Communist Party is executing a complex strategy. On one hand, they seek to immobilize the United States by conveying the message that China won't create a new order, while on the other hand, they also imply that China is ready for combat should the United States choose war. This strategy combines elements of immobilization and threat, aiming to influence the US' current hostile policy towards China. On the other hand, Xi Jinping has intensified cooperation with Vladimir Putin. Over the past few months, the whereabouts of China's former Minister of National Defense Li Xiangfu and former Foreign Minister Qin Gang have become a perplexing mystery. They still maintain a presence on the websites of the Ministry of National Defense and Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but their true activity seems to be deeply hidden. Intelligence sources speculate that the Chinese government may be planning a secret operation in coordination with Russia, and these two enigmatic high ranking officials could be the key players of this plan. Various rumors about Qinggang on the internet, such as being injected with poison at the 301 hospital, may only be smokescreens to confuse outsiders, and the actual situation may be more intricate than it appears. Xi Jinping's ability to employ such tactics has its roots in his skillful maneuvering and astute political acumen. Long before he assumed office, he excelled in the intricate game of power politics. He initially aligned with former Ministry of Commerce, Bo Xilai, to counter former Vice Premier Wang Yang, only to later join forces with Wang Yang against Bo Xilai. In this ever-shifting power struggle, Xi Jinping consistently managed to benefit from the chaos, presenting himself as a figure of integrity. Xi Jinping has been employing his strategic acumen in international and geopolitical affairs, seeking to engage in larger-scale power competition on the global stage. While he remains confident in his strategies, believing that the 40 years of reform and opening up have allowed China to accumulate capabilities surpassing those of the United States during World War II, and even significantly boost Russia's GDP growth rate within just a year or two. But whether this is enough to support his grand ambitions remains a subject for consideration. In comparison, the United States' strategic positioning appears to be more stable. U.S. weapons industry giants like Raytheon and Lockheed Martin are listed on global stock markets with funding sources coming from all over the world. Furthermore, the US economy and military strengths are steadily growing, with rising employment levels and decreasing prices and oil cost, all indicating potential advantages for the United States in a protracted conflict. If China and Russia continue to supply weapons and resources to anti-US organizations, it may lead to resource depletion and economic collapse. While the Taiwan situation may superficially appear as China's internal matter, it is in fact a crucial element in China's attempt to breach the first island chain and expand externally, with the goal of pushing the United States out of the Western Pacific. The recent election in Taiwan revealed that China failed to win over Taiwanese voters, particularly the younger generation who showed little interest in mainland China. Consequently, the Chinese government needs to reconsider its strategy regarding Taiwan. If China were to recklessly initiate a war with Taiwan, they would jeopardize the maritime lifelines of the United States in the Indo-Pacific region, leading to a life and death battle between the United States and China, similar to the battle against Japan in the past. In such a scenario, China's southeastern coastline could turn into ruins. Western nations would freeze China's overseas assets, impose economic blockades on the Chinese government, and Taiwan might declare independence as a result. At that point, the issue wouldn't be about Taiwan's reunification, but rather whether the CCP could survive. This was explicitly reflected in the 2014 U.S. National Defense Authorization Act, which unquestionably called for military reform in Taiwan. While President Biden maintains that the moment of Taiwan's independence hasn't arrived, his statement on his matter requires a closer examination. In fact, similar U.S. actions in international affairs are not uncommon. Just as during Israel's attacks on Hamas, the United States outwardly calls for humanitarian consideration in Israel's military operations, but provides weapons to Israel behind the scene. Similarly, in dealing with Yemen's Houthi armed forces, although the official US stance claimed to focus only on preventing Houthis' attacks on international merchant vessels, the US military action escalated in intensity. In such circumstances, interpreting US policies and statements require delving beyond the surface rhetorical and comprehending the underlying strategic intentions and the complexities of international relations. Xi Jinping has clearly encountered setbacks in the Taiwan situation, and he is currently conducting an in-depth investigation into the reasons for these failures among his subordinates. In order to preserve his position and save face for Xi Jinping, his subordinates have taken the first action. persuading Nauru to sever diplomatic ties with Taiwan. While such threats may come across as strong in rhetoric, their actual impacts on Taiwan is insignificant. Instead, they draw attention to Xi Jinping's use of diplomatic means as weapons in the eyes of the international community. The reduction in the number of Taiwan's diplomatic allies may ultimately lead to direct recognition of the legitimacy of the Republic of China by the United States and G7 countries. This seems to be an inevitable trend. However, achieving this goal requires careful planning and gradual implementation. North Korea. It's worth noting that around the time of the Taiwanese elections, tensions also escalated on the Korean peninsula. Despite repeated warnings from the United States, North Korea remained its position near Pyongyang and launched a medium-range ballistic missile into the eastern waters of the Korean peninsula on January 14th, with a range of 3,000 to 5,500 kilometers. North Korea's action appears to be forcing the United States into an either-or-not situation. If the US opts for military action, it could be interpreted as aggression, while refraining might be seen as a sign of compromise. In addition, some experts believe that North Korea's missile launch may serve a certain mission, which is to disrupt US satellites and to enable more critical military operations for the Chinese government in the South China Sea, East China Sea, or near Taiwan. For instance, assisting China's nuclear submarines to advance beyond the first island chain. 2 days before this missile launched on January 12th, North Korea shut down radio stations and related websites used for transmitting intelligence and instructions to South Korea. Experts in the field suggest that this could indicate North Korea has adopted new communication methods, and Kim Jong-un may be preparing for a full-scale war with South Korea. US experts also believe that the current situation on the Korean peninsula is most dangerous since the Korean War. Furthermore, on January 14th, the North Korean foreign minister embarked on a visit to Russia, during which they may have discussed the next steps for the Korean peninsula. The North Korean foreign minister visit to Russia has garnered significant media coverage, appearing to signal to the United States that North Korea has Russian support behind them. On January 15th, North Korea unexpectedly showcased a duplicate of the US reconnaissance drone RQ-4 Global Hawk. It is reported that this drone was manufactured in North Korea with assistance from Iran, which had previously shot down a Global Hawk in 2019. In China's offshore areas, tensions are rapidly escalating. Chinese military forces face a risk of potential clashes at any time with the US military. According to reports from China's Central Television, there have been close encounters between US aircraft and China's Type 055 guided missile destroyer, the Nanshan. The exhaust plume of US military aircraft was clearly visible above the Nanshan, appearing to simulate the act of dropping an aerial bomb. Simultaneously, the Nanshan had its defense system fully aimed at the US aircraft, having locked onto the target. The vertical launch system hatches were wide open, indicating a readiness to open fire at any moment. The United States has recently secretly deployed its third aircraft carrier strike group, CSG, in the Western Pacific, namely the USS Theodore Roosevelt aircraft carrier. This aircraft carrier set sail last Thursday and is set to join the USS Carl Vinson CSG and USS Ronald Reagan CSG, which have already been operating in the region. The U.S. Carl Vinson Aircraft Carrier Strike Group is currently loaded with F-35C fighter jets and has recently been active in the Philippine Seas, conducting missions in the Western Pacific region near Taiwan. The USS Ronald Reagan CSG is homeported in Yokosuka, Japan. The U.S. Amphibious Ready Group is based in Sasebo, Japan. The Theodore Roosevelt aircraft carrier underwent an 18-month dry dock maintenance and upgrade period following its consecutive deployments in 2020 and 2021. The refurbishment project included system upgrades to accommodate the mission requirements of the F-35C Lightning II fighter jets, as well as upgrades to the ship's self-defense system SSDS. The Consolidated Afloat Networks and Enterprise Services (CANES) program, and the Mk-38 25mm machine gun. This series of deployments and actions demonstrates the United States strengthening military presence and readiness in the Western Pacific region. The extensive upgrade of over 100 F-16 fighter jets provided by the United States to Taiwan has been completed, marking a significant deployment. It appears that before the next US presidential election, Taiwan will have the capability to compete with the People's Liberation Army in the aerial battlefield. Now, let's take a look at Russia's situation. Recently, their surveillance planes and electronic warfare aircraft were shot down in Ukraine, with Russian pilots claiming that it was the work of Ukraine Patriot's air defense system. However, it is worth noting that Patriot systems don't typically operate in the front lines, leading some analysts to suggest that this might be the work of F-16s. If that's indeed the case, then the air combat capabilities of the F-16 could genuinely surpass those of Russian fighter jets. As for the Thunderbolt air-to-air missiles that China boasts about, claiming it has a range of up to 200 or even 300 kilometers, however, its actual combat effectiveness remains uncertain. By observing the performance of the F-16, we might get an idea of the Thunderbolt missile's potential in real combat situations. It may not be as invincible as advertised. In modern aerial combat, the key lies in the integrated application of technology and tactics, and victory is not solely determined by range. Therefore, Taiwan's F-16 upgrade plays a crucial role in maintaining regional air balance.